What's up guys, it's Chris Majestic, and once again I had the opportunity to serve as a judge at this year's Ultra Short Throw Projector Showdown. This year's showdown was headed again by Phil Jones of ProjectorReviews.com and hosted by Brian Gluck at Projector Screen. I've had the pleasure of attending every one of the showdowns, and it has continued to improve every year. It's always an amazing experience considering you get to see a bunch of projectors in a room side by side, which is something you don't really get to do anywhere else. So if you're not familiar with the showdown, Brian and Phil take 8 of the most popular ultra short throw projectors and position them side by side in a room to be judged on their performance in several categories. Each judge scores the projector on everything from contrast, black levels, brightness, color reproduction, sharpness, skin tones, tone mapping, and even projection issues like rainbow effect, laser speckle, or chromatic aberration. Getting a bunch of projectors lined up in a room to be reviewed simultaneously is a logistical nightmare, but Brian and Phil did a fantastic job of creating a level playing field. And Brian just recently moved to an amazing new location, which made for an even better experience. And this year they did something a little different, using an OLED TV as a reference display. So they put it in a room with all the projectors for us to see how they compare to an OLED TV, which was really helpful. And if you're not familiar with Phil Jones, he's the owner and lead reviewer at ProjectorReviews.com. Not only is Phil well respected in the home theater community, but he's an industry expert with decades of AV experience and just an awesome guy overall. As usual, the judges were really awesome and we all worked perfectly together. Each judge is knowledgeable, bringing different perspectives, and we appreciate the insight we get from each other. So this year's showdown featured the Epson QS100, the Hisense L9Q, the Formovie Theater Premium, the Hisense PX3-Pro, the JMGO O2S Ultra, the Hisense PT1, and the Xgimi Aurora 2 GTV. All of these projectors were positioned onto 8 identical 100-inch Spectra Vantage CLR screens, and each unit was either configured directly in person by the manufacturer or the manufacturer provided the optimal settings. The only manufacturer that didn't provide settings was Epson, as they relied on Phil to determine the best settings to use. Alright, so first I'll go over the official results for the top ranked categories, then I'll talk about how they align with my personal favorites. So the winner for overall picture quality was the Hisense L9Q, the second place winner was the PX3-Pro, and third place was a tie between the Epson QS100 and Formovie Theater Premium. The winners in this category actually lined up perfectly with my personal top picks. The L9Q was the clear winner here. It didn't have the best black levels, but it somehow made up for this with great contrast and shadow detail and insane brightness. When we were in the room looking to see which projector looked the closest to the OLED, there were many times where it was the L9Q, whether it was based on color, contrast, highlights, or shadow detail. And right behind the L9Q was the PX3-Pro. I found that the PX3-Pro looked like a dimmer version of the L9Q, and this wasn't necessarily a bad thing considering it had better black levels and it still produced great contrast and shadow detail. And when you consider that the PX3-Pro is significantly cheaper than the L9Q, it could actually be the better option for some people, even though most of the judges still prefer the L9Q overall. And when it comes down to my third place choice, it was a super tough decision, and it was a tie between the Formovie Theater Premium and the Epson QS100. The QS100 wasn't the sharpest projector in the room and the black levels weren't great, but its contrast and tone mapping made up for it whenever it wasn't displaying a super dark scene. Mix that with the lack of rainbows and laser speckle, and the QS100 was a solid performer. And the Formovie Theater Premium performed great in nearly all of the tests. I gave it pretty much a B- in almost every single category, so it wasn't necessarily the best in each scenario, but it wasn't the worst either. And when you mix that with its price, I think the Formovie Theater Premium is a pretty good option. And the winners for the dedicated home theater ranking were all Hisense, with the Hisense L9Q getting first place, the PX3-Pro in second place, and the Hisense PT1 in third place. Now when it comes to the dedicated theater pick, I also agree with the winners here. The L9Q and PX3-Pro produced excellent contrast, which really showed in a dark room. In spite of the L9Q's mediocre black levels, it still somehow stood out as the clear winner in a dark room, which really surprised me as I expected the PX3-Pro to perform better, but the L9Q just looked better for some reason. And the projector that surprised me the most at the shootout was the Hisense PT1. The PT1 was one of the dimmest projectors in the room, being rated at 2500 lumens, but it easily had the best black levels. Now the contrast and shadow detail wasn't quite on par with the PX3-Pro and L9Q, but I think it's a great projector for a dark room, especially considering its price. And the winners for mixed room use were no surprise, as the brightest projectors did better here. And once again, the Hisense L9Q was the winner, winner, with the Epson QS100 coming in second, and a tie between the Hisense PX3-Pro and JMGO O2S Ultra for third place. The better contrast and black levels of the L9Q makes it the best option for mixed rooms with some potential for ambient light, and the Hisense PX3-Pro and JMGO O2S Ultra are also great options here. And I was really surprised by the JMGO O2S Ultra. Not only is it compact and full of a lot of cool installation features, but it's really bright for such a small projector. And the last top ranked category is one of my favorites, and that's the best value pick. And the winner for best value goes to the Hisense PX3-Pro, followed by the JMGO O2S Ultra, and third place goes to the Xgimi R2 GTV. And when it comes to best value, this is where my picks were a little different. Now, I did have the PX3-Pro as the winner for best value, but my second place was the Hisense PT1, and third place I had the Formovie Theater Premium. When you consider the performance we saw from these projectors mixed with their upcoming Black Friday pricing, those three projectors are some of the best deals I've seen for the money. And speaking of deals, make sure you use the projectorscreen.com affiliate links in the video description to take full advantage of upcoming discounts on the projectors mentioned in this video. Using those links is a free and easy way to support what I do here on the channel, and Brian's team does an amazing job answering questions and making sure you get the best deal. But when it comes to the showdown this year, it was a really tough competition. This was the hardest year when it came to ranking, as all of the projectors performed really well. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering where the Nexigo Aurora Pro Mark II is. Well, even though we did evaluate it with all the rest of the projectors, we had a few issues with the unit, so Brian and Phil were unable to use the results we got from it. And I'll put a link to the official article for the showdown where Brian explained the whole situation, but long story short, there were some mechanical and firmware issues that drastically affected the performance of the projector. So instead of being ranked really low when we all know it's a great projector, they decided that it was best to be transparent about the issues and omit it from the results. But with that said, I do plan on doing a full review on it in the near future, so make sure you're on the lookout for that video. As a judge in this event, the biggest takeaway this year is how well ultra short throw projectors have progressed over the years. Every single projector in the room this year performed better than the projectors we saw at previous shootouts. They just keep getting better and better, and I can't wait to see what things look like next year.